Welcome everyone, it's Shiloh Sophia and I am here at a very special tea party with my friend Susan, also known as SARK. SARK, Susan Ariel Rainbow Kennedy in San Francisco at her, what do you call this place? Where are we?
We're on top of a wonderful hill where the wild parrots frequent and kiss in the tree outside.
Oh, and from one window we can see the Golden Gate Bridge, and from the other window we can see the Bay Bridge, and there's a Chase Lounge where many of these books have been written, where you lay like a cat and gaze out the window at butterflies and parrots.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, we feel so excited to have Susan here for the 13th episode of Power Creatives TV, basically a calling together of the brilliant, funny, wealthy, inspired, radical, founding author creatives, otherwise known as my friends.
So wonderful that you've done this.
It is, because, you know, it's awesome to find yourself in a life surrounded by people who are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And then to say, actually, let's talk about what we're doing that's amazing. And let's talk about what makes someone powerfully creative. Like, really living your life from the perspective of being a creative.
Yes.
And you have done that since the beginning. Some of us, it took longer, but you, from the time you were tiny, right?
Yes.
Like,
tiny.
Tell us about the story. I know you tell it a lot, and I always love hearing it, but just about the show and tell story.
Oh, you're right. Where I came home and said, Mom, show and tell should be me every day. And she said, honey, the other kids need a chance. And I said, well, actually, they don't. They hate it, and they're begging me to do it. And so I had this really neat mom and this really neat teacher, and so they got together and had a meeting and said, let's make a way for her to do show and tell every day to a different grade.
Oh my gosh.
So that is where I know I got my real speaker's training, because when you're in first grade and you need to hold the attention of sixth graders, you've got to be really good. So the day that I was speaking to the sixth graders, I came in wearing a giant bush on my head, which I fashioned a crown, and then I literally had it, and I said, okay, everybody, this is a gooseberry bush, and they grow in our neighborhood, and you can eat the berries. And I was plucking the berries off the bush. And I could still see all their faces. They were like leaning back like, what? Yeah, and they could hardly wait to see what I was going to show them next.
That is just so adorable and amazing. And I'm thinking about your life and your business and your relationships, and it's like, you're that same girl.
Yes.
Now. It's like business as show and tell. Look what I made. This is like, look at my pens. Look at my stuff. We're playing. It's exciting.
Yeah, really. And I think, you know, my other favorite job was as the wake-up fairy in kindergarten. And each sleeping child was on their little mat, and my job was to go and take the magic wand and like tap them gently on the head. And there was this one boy I didn't like, so when the teacher wasn't looking, I would bonk him, and then he would be startled. But I feel like I have that magic wand now still, only it's just bigger, and I'm bigger, and I can do more things, and I can wake up more people.
So is that what you do with that magic wand? You go around waking people up?
Yes. Let's hear the sound of it now.
Would you like to be woken up? Ooh, I feel brighter already. It's illumination. Well, I want to just acknowledge you. I feel like there are people who come into the world to bring their gifts, which we all do, but I'm really going to attest to the outrageous miracle of you. There have been movements of artists since the beginning of time, from the cave woman all the way to Susan. There have been women who have created. And each one who shifted something made it then possible. Like that old 100th monkey story, whether it's legend or whatever. But that thought that by the time the 100th monkey washes her potato, then everybody washes their potato. Love the concept of that tipping point.
Yes.
And brave artists come forward and they start shifting and moving how people view the creative process, including healing. Like, even think of Frida Kahlo, the way that she worked with a narrative in her paintings. She shifted painting forever.
Yeah.
And I feel with you that what year did you come out with your first book?
1990.
1990. So I was 20 years old. When you brought out illustrated books with stories, with drawings, hand-drawn, that illuminated so much of what was hidden within us and made it the thing that you did. I feel like you opened the door for the creatives at a level that has never been closed since then. Like when you were doing what you're doing, creative visual journaling wasn't what it is now, right? When you were doing it, the handwritten and the way that you work with transformation wasn't happening the way that you were doing it. You actually opened to that for all of us. I mean, you know that, right? Like,
yeah, but it's good to hear it reflected. And certainly there were those that opened it for me. I mean, just like what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, like that, you know, Maya Angelou and Madeleine L'Engle opened these doors for me.
Yeah.
And then I walked through.
Yeah.
And then I opened the doors for others. And then they'll open the doors for others. And you've opened the doors for so many in the most profound ways. Yeah. Isn't that the best thing?
Yeah, it is. It's really art in the service of alchemy. And when we make it more available to others, then you get to dive into that, which is part of our theme for today, is inspired wildness.
Oh, yes. Inspired wildness. Because everyone has inspired wildness. And that's why everyone resonates. You know, we're all resonating with each other. It's all vibrational. And, you know, but some people haven't woken up yet to their inspired wildness.
Yeah, and so for you, as you're listening, if you even just think of those two awesome words together, inspired wildness, what stirs up for you when you think of that? Like, what does that call in you? Because I feel from the time we're little, we are often put in these constraints to behave, act normal, don't show who you really are. If you do that, you're going to get in trouble. And the truth is that if we did reveal ourselves, we often did get in trouble and were criticized for the ways that we're unique and creative. And so we often compartmentalize ourselves, and it takes some time to bring that inspired wildness back out. And we work with a lot of people who didn't bring it out until they met us and worked with us with something. And we were the giant permission slip.
Yeah, yeah. And catalysts. I mean, your books, your art, catalysts, giant catalysts, you know, SARK books, you know, wow. I would meet people and they would tell me they'd read 4 SARK books. And I would say, and I still say, oh, wow, tell me what ends up shifting, you know, what starts moving, you know, because boy, all of a sudden they were, you know, relocating to Paris,
right?
Or, you know, going to be of service in Africa or, you know, some part of the United States or wherever. You know? Yeah,
because it helps unhook some of the stuff that's crusty and scabbed over, and that creative way that you share. And also just the healing. We have the blanket behind us that says healing on it, which we're both all dedicated to our creativity, but we're also both really dedicated to the healing journey.
Oh, yeah, and the transformational journey. I mean, healing is an opportunity for all of us to transform with inspired wildness. I mean, that's the other thing. You know, I remember when I was younger, I tried to divide off healing. You know, like, well, that's when I'm really old, or that's when, you know, some bad thing happens, you know.
Right.
There's proactive and preventative healing that can take place right now in this moment that is going to serve you the rest of your life.
And how do you feel like art contributes to healing?
Oh my goodness. Well, it names things, it gives things visual representation, it touches the soul and the heart. Healing does not happen through the mind. I mean, the mind is certainly involved. The mind is a fantastic partner for healing, but it is not the healer. And no one thing is the healer. That's the part. That's why Western medicine joined. I mean, it's so wonderful now that what was called alternative medicine is joining. So there's an integration. Yeah.
Yeah. So with our work today, with Inspired Wildness, our hope is to call that place out within you. And when you see other beings who are living inspired wildness, it's sort of like it just catches, you know, it's like a little hot pink fire that just trickles around. And so we really wanted this alchemical cafe to be a space for you to connect with your own sense of inspiring yourself.
Yes.
Well, and I think that's one of the other things that you really witness to us is you inspire yourself.
Oh, okay.
People don't know how to do that. Like, people ask me, what's your inspiration? I'm like, what isn't my inspiration? Like, I'm like on fire. I can't wait to wake up every day and create stuff. I inspire myself too. But like with you, how to be an artist, build a fort with a blanket, wild imaginations, transformation, dreams, how to really live juicy, eat mangoes naked, amaze yourself. How does, if someone hasn't been living in a sense of their own amazement with themselves, where do they find that? I mean, that's that's a thing I feel like you brought out to the rest of us that wasn't happening before you at the level that you brought it out.
Yeah, I think that's what show and tell was about too. I mean, I call it adventure amnesia. This is why when I wrote my book, Living Juicy, I said, we're meant to live juicy, and a lot of people are living what I call dry and cracked.
Yeah.
And they have adventure amnesia. And what I mean by that is they know something's missing, they don't know what it is, and it's always adventure. It's always adventure.
I love that.
But they don't know it, and they think it's something big that they have to save money for and do once a year, or twice a year if they're lucky, or 3 times a year if they're really blessed. But it's daily. It's daily. It's in all the tiny things. And, this is where you are given the opportunity to play with life and be inspired by life and every person you encounter. Now, some people are not ready to play. And they're not, you don't spend time there. You don't hang out trying to get someone to play who's not playable. But I would say 90% of the people I meet are ready to play. And I inspire them to play. Like I just did the other day. I was walking at the beach and it was really windy. And every person that came toward me, I said, in a different way, I said, could you please turn the wind down? Could you reach the dial and turn the wind down? And every person like, you got it. It's down at the end. I'll catch it down there and turn it off. And I'm like, thank you. Now, the wind that had been so annoying and assaulting now was funny, and I was playing with the wind, and I was playing with the people, and that's the opportunity. We think we're going into the store for a bottle of milk or whatever it is. You're there as a minister of love, and you have an opportunity to be inspired and to inspire. And I always tell people, like I just bought a new car, and the car salesperson and I were in the car crying and hugging. and someone said, how did that happen? Oh, right, it was you. Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
But what they're not realizing is they have their version of that. You might not want to be in the car with the car salesperson crying and hugging. That may not be your style, or your way. But you have your version, I assure you.
Yes.
Of meeting people in spontaneous and loving and soft and you have the ability, every person listening now or later has the ability to touch and be touched inspirationally by everything in life. I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah.
You may be able to tell.
And I feel like what you're talking about is consciousness with this edge of play. The consciousness that comes with the magic wand instead of just sit on the mountain and meditate consciousness. Really like choosing active. How you're going to engage with what there is.
Yes.
And being with it as if there's an opportunity here for you to have a relationship or a breakthrough or just a better day.
Yes. Well, and let's be sure to talk about, because sometimes this can get miscast as and I love saying this, I'll say it this way, mindlessly positive people annoy me. And when I used to give talks about this, I'd see people's shoulders just come down like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I thought she was just endlessly running around like, magic! Oh, the man in the store is so sweet. And, oh, that dog is just magic. We've all known someone that, you're around them and you're just like, oh, God, do you ever shut up? And do you ever get sad? And so let's be sure to say, we need to feel all of our feelings, the rage, the despair, the nightmares, all of it, down to the tips of our toes, from the top of our head and up and down again. I call it the marvelous messy middle, and it's messy. But the thing is, people get stuck there, and they spend way too much time feeling bad.
Yeah.
You do need to feel bad, but you don't need to stay there. And that's the transformational journey. You have the opportunity to use your transformational practices and processes. We'll take you through some now, where you can fill yourself back up from the inside, and then you can meet life again with some equilibrium and with some like sweet joy that's grounded. You know?
Yeah.
So I want to be sure to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. And that's hence the consciousness, not like just a positive attitude, but really choosing the level of engagement and how we're going to engage. I think that's so relevant. It makes me think of my mom. When I was growing up, we moved a lot, and there were quite a few marriages and other assorted activities. And she...
Not sorted, but assorted.
Or maybe sorted. And she made a really conscious decision to call all of these changes a great adventure.
Oh.
And I think of it now of her bravery that in her own heartbreak or despair, I mean, sometimes we leave in the middle of the night. And she still was like, yep, it's a great adventure. Where would you like to arrive tomorrow? Is it important to be at a hotel with a swimming pool? Or we could drive to Santa Rosa or to Santa Cruz to the beach boardwalk. And let's do pros and cons. You get a piece of paper out of my purse, and we'll do pros and cons, and we'll weigh them all out, and then we'll stop for a hot dog in the middle of the night. You want to, and
wow.
So she had me engaged in this. Well, they have this and they have that, and this is how long it will take. And we usually ended up at my grandma's house, but still. And then we'd sing, and I realized that the way that I physiologically managed the trauma was through the calibration of the opportunity to think of it as an adventure.
Yes.
Now, later I had to kind of deal with that because it was a kind of a bypassing. But then I could just reflect and go, okay, I see what that was. And, here's the real impact that had on me. But as a body and a soul, I had already framed it not as trauma. So the reconciliation wasn't as much work because it did not occur for me as suffering.
Yeah.
Because of a perspective held together consciously. And then now I do that with her. I'll be like, well, Mom, is that the perspective? And she's like, oh, you got me, So it's this chosen intimacy with the universe.
Yes. Well said. Very well said. That's wonderful. And I'm glad you went back and dealt with some of the things, because we heal in spirals and layers. It's not a ladder, and people are constantly 7 steps to, feeling better faster. And it's like, good luck, because it's going to come back around, but you're going to be at a different point when it comes back around in a spiral.
And for us, obviously, the creative process is one of the ways we navigate that. For myself, when I'm feeling just like, oh my gosh, what's happening to my country or whatever it is, if I just start doodling and creating and getting curious and sending love. I just was working on a painting where I put the President of the United States and his whole cabinet. I marked them all in the painting. Like everybody's included. We're all in this big story together. There's so much stuff happening, but let's be curious about how we find ourselves in this unfolding story. And by framing it that way and being curious and being creative, I then find myself able to be empowered and then to hold space for others who aren't necessarily able to shift the frame. I've been practicing shifting the frame all my life.
Right. And there are people I haven't been practicing,
Right.
And it's very wise of you to know that. Yeah, you just reminded me of something when... of course, my fiance, John, died last year now. And when he was really sick, I was being mentored by wonderful people, including Dr. Rachel Naomi Remen, who wrote Kitchen Table Wisdom. And I went over to her house numerous times. And this one time I arrived and, was just in a state of complete despair. And I'll never forget it. She went and got this piece of art to show me. And it just had one word in calligraphy in the center of the piece of art. And the word was curiosity.
Ooh, I just got chills.
And I thought, curiosity? How can I be curious about this? I am not curious about this. I hate this, But it was so wise. She was also the person that said to me, you will not believe the power of this diagnosis. And here he got this completely life-threatening diagnosis, the worst one you can get. And that was what she said.
The power of this diagnosis.
Yeah.
What did that end up meaning?
Well, first of all, it meant that we had to wake up. Like we were dealing with life and death.
Yeah.
And so I immediately quit working the way I had been working for 20 years plus. I quit eating sugar, which is still happening, I can't believe. I began being more devoted than ever to my transformational practices. I changed my whole life from the power of that diagnosis. And he did too. He started doing very deep therapy. He cleared all his traumas from his childhood and his life. And when he died, he graduated. He meditated right out of there. He had a smile on his face. He didn't need his physical body anymore. And he went, psh. And I didn't, both of us thought the point was to keep, always keep your physical body. But if you're done, the point is not to keep your physical body. And so that curiosity that just sparked that, And we were very creative and very inspired through his whole dying process. Not all of it.
You all were such a witness for all of us, me getting to be a part of how that went. A new and different way. We were all educated, and I think we're all approaching death and life from a different perspective as a community as we evolve and grow, and because it's
the sirens the sirens are calling us.
So, and John is such a witness to the power of the heart and the mind working together.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll never forget in my entire life how he met his illness with so much love. Right. And he was not resentful, and he was not angry. So then I was resentful and angry. But then I worked through it, and I was like, okay, this is the new journey. And and now more than ever now I see the perfection of his death. Which... when his wife died, he told me that. He said, I see the perfection of her death. I'm like, oh my God, you adored her. You were with her for 10 years. How could you possibly think that her death was okay? Well, not only is it okay, it was perfection in the sense that it was right for her. And his death was right for him. I personally didn't think it was a very good idea.
Not right for you.
But I'm starting to see the rightness because when he wouldn't have met me if... Yeah. The rightness for him became apparent when he met me. And it was a full-on love relationship and, a new love for him. And I'm starting to get glimmers of that myself.
The love in the heart is an amazing place, isn't it? Yeah. It's just the capacity. I love Dr. Estes talks about the unruined heart. Oh. And that concept is so fresh, I feel, that somewhere, regardless of all the trauma, underneath the heart is actually maintained. It's unruined.
Yes, I love that.
And we don't think about it like that. We think of ourselves as all the batters and scars, and we are that too, but the unruined heart. And I feel similar about that to creativity when people haven't been creating.
Right.
And they think, I've wasted so much of my life because I haven't been being myself, or blah, blah. When people start creating, what I witness is that it's like that muse has been working on your behalf behind the scenes the whole time. And if you will just let her reconcile that moment for you, or series of moments, all of a sudden, I think one of the marks that you've made it to that moment is that your creative process makes everything useful that you have been through.
Yes.
And until you have that feeling, you're sort of still on the way to that.
Yes.
But once you get there, you're like, I can't believe all that shit is been composting, and there's flowers growing out of it, and you never thought it could be possible because you can't think yourself into that. You have to experience yourself into that, and creativity is one of the ways that you can get access to making all the stuff relevant.
Yes.
Because otherwise, it's like a weight.
Yes. And here's the other thing to know. We always think, people are often telling me, well, I left my creativity a long time ago, and I haven't touched it. And I always remind them, creativity never left you.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
Like you left it. That. Like they think it left them.
Right.
But they left it. Isn't that great?
It is amazing because then you get to come back.
Oh, yeah. And you're never too old. You're never too anything. Like we're always thinking, oh, it's too late now. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I don't have enough money. I have 90 grandchildren and 500 jobs.
And a magician. Yes, and so we're gonna let Susan lead you in an inspiration process. What I would love to do is to send a red thread to you right where you are. And the red thread is the sign of connection. And it's representative of a sense of arriving together with the people that you want to be with, and recognizing them. And like you do all the time, you're always recognizing people out on the street. There you are. Oh, I've been looking for you. Oh, I've been waiting for you. Like there's this sense of connection that I think is so profound. And so we wanted to, because you're watching this right now, you actually are supposed to be in this cafe with us because you're here, right? So it's pretty obvious you're already here, but just claim that there's something here for you and something here for us. You're so self-sufficient. You're tying your own thread. I need me to tie this for you.
I couldn't remember. I was like, wait a minute.
And I'll trim this for you.
Oh, thank you. I love your little scissors.
And so the sense of the red thread we're extending to you is this, you're supposed to be here. We're all connected truly in this moment. And what's awesome about the thread is that you are only responsible for your piece. Because you probably are a visionary, whether you think you are or not, you probably are. You had a chance to witness the feeling sometimes of like wanting to save the world, or what could you do? And sometimes that's overwhelming because you're looking at this and you're like, wow, I don't even know what's in there. I don't know how I could ever reach those people or feed the hungry or whatever your unique thing is that you wanted to save. In this teaching, this is the only part that you're responsible for.
Oh, it's so great.
And if you know how to name it, what's awesome is you also get to discover how to say no to everything else that isn't on that thread. So it makes a distinction. And when sometimes people end up with a lot of thread at the end of the circle, and they would just have, you know, tons and tons, and they're like, oh, that's for sharing. I remember at the end when, by the time my teacher Sue passed into the cosmos, she would take 1 inch of thread. She's like, this is all I'm responsible for. And she would tie it on the button of her overalls.
That's like Mother Teresa died with a bucket and a sari. That was what was her physical possessions.
Oh, God, I just got chills. Woo!
Of course, now my perfectionist is like, am I doing it right? Am I tying it too tight? I'm tying Shiloh's red thread. It's very suspenseful.
So we have a red thread for you, and I'd love for you to be as if you have received that thread in your hands, and that you actually allow yourself to be connected to us in the quantum world. It's as real as if we're right with you. Whenever time you're watching this, we are really together, because time is not like this. Not yesterday and today. As you likely are aware, time is like this. And so we are right here. We are right here in vertical time. And so you get the opportunity to just feel the realness of this presence and allow that to sparkle over to you like a shimmer. Okay, because that's what's happening. It's reaching you where you are. And now I would love you to get, in every alchemical cafe we've done, a creative process. Simple, paper and pen, language, sometimes some image. And Susan's going to lead us in a journey.
Yes. Yes. First, I'm going to start. There's a little series of questions. And so I want you to kind of be filling in, as I speak about things, fill in the answers. So first is who, and I'm going to read the question, then I'm going to give you some examples.
Okay.
And you can, of course, choose your own or use any of my examples. Who or what inspires you? And so what I said was spirit, SARK, Shiloh's art and words, the immenseness of nature, color reflected, poetry spoken or read. Those are some things, just some things that inspire me. And so now you'll take a moment or so and write down some things that inspire you. Who or what inspires you? And you're going to be able to always come back to any of these later and add more in. So please don't rush or pressure yourself. You may be in a contemplative mood and just have one thing.
Yeah, and you can just pause the video and just come back too. So,
Yeah.
So take your time. We're going to be moving through more quickly. We're presenting the process to you, and then you can take it and just go with it.
Yeah.
So, love that one.
Yeah. Do you want to share who or what inspires you?
What came out today was just color, bright wing revealed, brave souls.
Oh, nice.
Just let it come out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe I'm using a purple SARK pen right now. I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Okay, next question. What or who blocks my inspiration? So for me, it's repetitive fears, unsupervised inner critics, untended inner feelings. What or who blocks my inspiration?
Yeah, I think for me, fear is a big one. And then part of what I'm working on this year is fear of attack. I realize I've had that sort of since I was a child, even though I've never been attacked. I've always had this fear of attack because we're a part of the women's movement, and I was in danger on quite a few occasions. And so I only realized, this year that I've been going around being afraid of attack, and then also afraid of energetic attack. Because when you teach online, you're talking to thousands of people, no idea what they're doing or where they are or what they're thinking about you. And so I'm like shrinking to protect, and I'm not going to say that because then this might happen. And so I'm really learning to navigate how to be brave and conscious, protect myself, but not move from fear, because that blocks my capacity to even speak authentically.
Right. Well said. Yeah. Yeah. I remember a therapist I had many years ago said, "I will know you've made progress when you can take the compliments and complaints equally." And it was like,
what?
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm trying to scoop up all the compliments, push away the complaints, at that time. There's a tremendous freedom in that. Really, we've all heard it, but it bears repeating. What you think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
And then my other favorite quote on this subject is, "In our total vulnerability lies our complete safety." Isn't that
It's kind of a riddle.
Yeah.
I have to think about that one.
It's a koan.
It is exactly koan.
Okay, so the third sentence is, what or who supports my being inspired? And my examples are my inner wise self, all parts of me who are being loved and loving, gifts of nature, all creative being. Who or what supports my being inspired?
I put friends, my lover, my kittens, and the women that I work with. Because I feel like from pretty early, I had a sense that when I woke up in the morning, I was waking up to serve someone that I used to call the girl at the gas station. She was who I work for.
Oh.
With, gold stars on her fingernails. Like just this archetype that I was waking up to serve her. And I still hold that in my mind. So I feel my inspiration feels supported by my desire to serve.
That's wonderful. So fourth question, in what ways am I inspiring? And if you want to say what ways are you inspiring, if that's an easier way for you to hear it. So my examples are breathing, being, dreaming, doing, laughing, loving, uncommon perspectives, and speaking truths. So that's the way I'm inspiring to myself.
I think I have a commitment to curiosity. There's that word. And also a sense of, like in our community of Cosmic Cowgirls, being an edge walker, like really trying to find the place in the middle of the paradox. That really is the place where I like to hang out. It's not this or that or black or white or good or bad. It's like right in the middle, in the marvelous, messy middle. I don't know if it's that same metaphor, but just I inspire myself by my joy at finding just the paradox, celebrating it.
Oh, I love that. I see that in you. You know, that you are that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's fill out. I realize I want to talk just a little bit about some of the things I mentioned about unsupervised. Let's start with inner wise self, just so people have a sense of what these things are. And many of you watching may do this already. You could call it inner wisdom. You could call it higher self, pure positive energy, Holy Spirit. There's lots of different names. But it's the part of you that's much larger than you. It's unconditionally loving of you and has been there since before you were born and will be with you through your whole life and beyond. And most people are aware that they have this part, especially if you call it something like higher self, or, you know, they'll just immediately go, yes, I know I have this part. But then if I ask how many people are consulting with this part every single day on every single subject of their lives, almost no one is. And when I question people, it's because they feel they're going to overuse it, or they need to save it until they're, you know, alone in 90, or whatever they fear is. That's when I'll really need that part. Meanwhile, that part is ready to talk to you every day on every subject. Is it time to take a nap? What would be a good snack for me? Is it time to call him back? Is it time to not call? What do I need to do with my creativity? How come I'm so lonely? I mean, any of these life questions, the inner wise self is just waiting for you to ask. So here's an important distinction. If you ever hear from what you think is your inner wise self and there's anything critical, it's an inner critic that has snuck in and is impersonating your inner wise self. Not that the inner wise self can't be, you know, discerning and maybe even firm, or kind of a nudger in a way.
Never shaming.
Never shaming, and never pointing out things that, you know, you better do this or you should do that. Whenever you're hearing words like should, always, or never, those are the hallmarks of an inner critic. So I feel like reading an inner wise self love note, so that people have a sense of what they are, and then they can write one of their own.
You can write your own inner wise self love note.
Yeah. So every inner wise self calibrates its language to you specifically. So your inner wise self might be more abbreviated. It might be cryptic. I've been building a relationship for many, many years. My inner wise self speaks in terms of great endearment. It's actually hilarious. I mean, it will put 10 adjectives. My most darling, adorable, rare, magnificent Susan. You know, like, so it's writing me poems and it's singing me songs. And so, in other words, yours is specifically for you. So, but it turns out that everyone's inner wise self love notes are for everyone. So as you hear this one, know that it's for you too.
Love that.
Yeah. So this one says, darling, sweetiest Susan, I see you in your stops and starts, your fears and resistances. I see you in your glorious unfoldings and creative inventions. I see you think you're not enough, and then see you leap to the next spot laughing. I see you write yourself in and out of memory and dream, smoke and shadow. I see your new creations taking flight. I see you refusing to quit for long. I see you willing to sob on the floor. I see you showing up to create over and over and over and over again, even when it's boring, messy, or not your favorite. I see you celebrating, creating, making your desires real, and sharing your life's purpose. I see you allowing the splendid imperfections and glaring omissions and inescapable truths and uncertainties. I see you, I know you, I love you unconditionally, completely, and forever. Call on me constantly. I'm right here, right now, right always. I adore you. So, yeah, so if you even set a timer on your own time for like 3 minutes, a note like this will appear. And I've been teaching now this for over a decade, and I've never had anyone yet who couldn't. Once in a while there'll be someone who's nothing came, but then it wouldn't take long before something did come. And once you establish this connection, you can write more notes, but then you can invite your inner wise self to just speak in your head.
Yeah.
And so as you're doing things, as you're driving, I'm feeling really scared. What should I do? Inner wise self, what should I do? And your inner wise self will give you an answer. And if you don't like the answer or the answer isn't clear to you, you can say, can you tell me that in another way?
Yeah.
And so I always say, ask and then ask again.
Mm.
Ask differently, ask again. And
yeah. So I'm hearing an important part of the process is to engage with it.
Yes.
Like otherwise, other thoughts like reason or the critic or making decisions for the future based on the past, other references, beliefs could come in. When the inner wise self comes in, it's an invitation, but eventually it becomes more normal, but you still are like engaging it. So it's like a turning it on.
Yes, and I'm glad you said that because I'm often resistant and very crabby when I talk to my inner wise self. I'm often at some kind of wit's end, and I'll say things like, well, okay, what do you got now? Okay, inner wise self. I'm not like, inner wise self, what wisdom do you have for me now? I was like, okay, what now? What to do about this? It doesn't care how you talk to it. You don't need to...
Come as you are.
Yeah, come as you are. Come as you aren't. Come as you resist. Come, just go there. And then I always have people that say, they'll receive their note and they'll just be blown away.
Right.
And then I'll say, did you know that was in there? And they'll say, no. And then they immediately say, there's no more in there. I used it up.
Yeah.
That's the note. And I say, oh, there's so much in there.
We have good news.
Yeah, it's unlimited and it only gets better. It's like any relationship. The more you engage, the more it delivers. The more you engage, the more it delivers.
Yeah, that's a practice. It's like a muscle. And for me, mine is very feisty. And what's awesome is that they will reveal to you things that were hidden, including about desires and colors and textures and foods and things you want with your lover. If we're still just using the old framework, we don't get the same. I mean, what's mighty to me about it is that by engaging it through invitation, the outcomes are totally different than if we're not.
Yes.
That's how you know how potent it is. And as you develop this relationship more and more, then you start to be able to identify when the untrue things come, because it also just feels so different now. Like now you know it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But when you haven't been practicing you're amazing or you suck, doesn't sound that different because you haven't made a distinction. When you engage, like Susan is encouraging you to do, through the writing process, you connect with that. It's like now it's turned on, there's an access, it's open, and it's a different potential. But it is a choice. It is a conscious choice to engage with it. And I think it does take some practice. It gets flowing, but there is some practice of learning how to now call that, to summon that, and to not override that. And a distinction has been made now. Like, yeah, we don't actually need to talk to ourselves as if we are good enough in order to get done what we need to get done. That's actually not useful. So the wisdom of that also helps us understand that the other voice is actually not useful. And we don't want to have a use for it either.
Yeah. I love what you just said. Yeah. And so just briefly, I want to just touch on inner critics. If you're really merged with your inner critics, you won't know that they're inner critics.
Right.
You will think that's just how you are. And people will say, oh, I'm just a procrastinator. That's what I've always been. I'm just a perfectionist. That's what I'm like. No, that's a belief system. It's an inner critic it's not that they're bad. It's conditioning from childhood that grew and grew, and it's out of proportion to what you need now. And so there's inner critic care systems. There's wonderful things that you can learn about your inner critics and have a care system so that they're not running your life. Because it's meant for you and your inner wise self to run your life, not inner critics. And a lot of people are being run by inner critics. I was for years. And it wasn't until I started doing this work that I realized I was just listening to these critical inner voices all the time about every subject. So it's a tremendous piece of work that's available to everyone. It will make a tremendous difference in your life and in your creativity and in your ability to be wildly inspired. Yeah. And then the other one I want to just touch on is what I call inner feelings care. And you heard me say earlier that you need to feel all your feelings, but you don't need to stay there. One of the ways that you do that is to care for your feelings, tend to them daily. I'll just show you a 5-second one right now that all of you can do, all of us can do. As soon as you're aware of any feeling, I was this morning, sadness, I sometimes feel it on both sides of me, but you just say the name of that feeling out loud, like sadness, I see you, I hear you, I feel you. And then sadness, it's almost like it can soften and change shape. I often think of feelings as, because all they are heads. They're just heads, and they can only feel what they feel. So sadness can only be sadness. But I think of it as having little shoulders, and the little shoulders come down. Mm-hmm. Because feelings want our love and attention, and if they don't get it, they'll get louder and larger. And larger looks like drinking too much, eating the wrong foods, midlife crisis, road rage. I mean, we could go on.
I have
and on.
all that. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it really does. And people were not taught this. And, I certainly wasn't. In my childhood, I was taught, that I could have one feeling at a time, and I had to go to my room to have it. And then I better come out feeling better, no matter how I felt. Right. And so I realized it was my training to become really a feelings master. And then I created this process for myself. And then, of course, as everything, I saw how it was helping me. So then I began teaching it to others. And then I saw how it was helping them. So it's incredibly powerful to have dominion with your feelings and be able to tend to them skillfully and with great love. And to really think of it like brushing your teeth or yoga. I mean, the truth is you can drink all the green juice in the world, and if you've got critical negative thoughts and if you're not tending to your feelings, you're going to feel like shit. Yeah. And, you're not going to create anything because you'll just be consumed. People talk about clutter clearing. The real clutter clearing is the untended feelings that we have circulating around and around. I can't believe my sister did that. I hate her. My mother is so stupid. And we don't clear this stuff up. And then it's just our heads are filled. And
it's a dominant predator.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's really, because this is not a light topic, because this informs your job, your relationship to money, your relationship to your body, all of your lovers' choices. Like, if this is operating as a primary narrative, then the choices that you make will be in reaction to that. And we don't know that it's operating until someone tells us. Usually. It doesn't usually occur for us on our own. Sometimes, but most people think that voice is actually them.
Oh, I know.
And it actually isn't.
Right.
However, the integration that can happen once you start to develop this connection, then that critic, I think of the critic as the discerner gone wrong. Mm-hmm. Because in the beginning, it wanted to protect you. If you go over there, those kids are going to make fun of you. And you went over there and they did make fun of you. So there's truth to it. So then you start to believe it. But then without listening to yourself, without listening to your feelings, without staying creative and staying juicy, that becomes the dominant framework. It's like a default setting. It just starts rolling along. And then you don't even know what's there. You say, well, what about the voice in here? They're like, what voice? It's like, the voice is like, Yeah. So a huge part of what both of us work on is really working with people to develop resiliency with that authentic, creative, wildly inspired voice. And there's a lot of play over there.
Yeah.
There's a lot more available over there.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about being happy more often, that's where it's at. Because you can't truly be happy if you've got this whole, radio show in your head about how fat you are and how you don't have enough and you're not enough and nothing you ever do is enough. And by the way, your thighs are this or that. I mean, it's relentless, and it's a dominant predator, as she said. Now, the good news is you really can do significant work to alter this forever. Yeah. I mean, it's a choice.
Yes.
Like, and it's knowledge. It's, when I was a certain age, I didn't know any of this. I was like run by inner critics, and I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
I think now we know more than we have known. Like our moms didn't know.
No. My mother was consumed by inner critics and then projected it onto me. She was a master grudge holder, and so then I learned how to hold grudges, and Still working my way out of that one. So by no means, anything I teach is what I'm practicing myself. So none of this is, I've achieved the inner feelings care and I spend very little time upset. You know, no, I get really upset. I just don't stay there very long.
Beautiful distinction.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to encourage all of you to write your message, and you can be as if you're handing that inner wise self, or what I call the muse, hand them the pen, and you sort of just imagine. And through that imagining and that playfulness, or writing in purple, then it's sort of like, oh, this little opening happens. And the experience of being with that is so much more potent over time that you simply start to lose interest in the other way of thinking. I mean, that's really how it is for me. Like, I'm sort of like, yeah, that's not really useful. Yeah, that's not very cool. That's not interesting. That's not funny. That doesn't draw me out. It just ceases to, it just sinks to the bottom.
Yeah.
It isn't that it doesn't still arise from time to time. It just is not where I live from. I don't make choices from that place.
Right. And so you have effectively dismantled the primary dominant predator.
Yeah, and now my settings are not default. Now I get to recalibrate my sound and my love board every day, you know?
Yeah.
So I love talking to you.
Oh,
it's so
wonderful.
just so awesome. Just thank you, Creator, for Susan, because you're just a blessing to us, and the way that we love you and the way you allow yourself to be loved, it's just a beautiful thing to get to be a part of.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm so glad to say that I am finally really, I'm not going to use the word finally, I am really allowing myself to be loved now. Yeah, John really opened that up, and my heart opened, and it's continuing to be open and gathering even more love. Isn't that wonderful?
It is so wonderful.
And that's for all of us. Like, we all have the opportunity to be more creative, more inspired, more wild, more loving as we grow and change. And that reminds me of my quote that I wrote about, it's about age, but it's really about life. The opposite of old is not young. The opposite of old is new. And as long as we continue to experience the new, we will gloriously inhabit all of the ages that we are. Isn't that good?
That's good. I can use that about now.
Yeah, yeah. So
yes,
yeah,
awesome.
and that's actually what people mean when they say what's new. They don't want to hear same old,
right?
Nobody does, but I mean, sometimes you just say, you say something because you don't really want to get into what's new.
Yeah.
Or you're just, you're crabby or you're whatever. But it's an opportunity to say, oh my God, let me tell you what's new.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a freshness.
Yeah.
It's a freshness, and it's a freshness for your whole body and your mind and your heart and your brain, and gives you this opportunity to be in love with the world.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's happening. Like, loving all of it right in the middle of where it is. Well, I know that you have prepared a gift for our viewers.
Oh, yes. Well,
will you tell us what did we get?
Well, I have this wonderful little book I created that is about, if you have any interest in having a business with your creativity and your inspired wildness. This is about creating your succulent wild business. And we did have it be 7 steps, but they are not linear. And it's called A Delightful Guide to Prosperous Living While Building a Business You Love. And I'll just read a little bit. My own business started in the way that so many great things do, in a garage with no money. I also had a tiny magic cottage behind the garage where I lived and dreamed my big visions. It was there where I started making my How to Be an Artist poster by hand. This little poster, I immediately saw a typo. See? This.
Don't take it out.
And then I tried to cover it up. This little poster went on to sell millions of copies around the world, and I'm the one that proofed it, by the way. I had no idea at the time that this succulent wild journey would take me on a wild ride, creating 17 best-selling books and hundreds of products and programs that touch the lives of people around the world. I was simply following my creative dreams and still am. Yeah, and then it just takes you through this wonderful journey through... so it's actually an expansion of what I put in this book. So stage 1 is an egg. In the beginning there was an idea, and you can take anything that you're working on and work through these stages of birth and infancy and toddler and child an adolescent, and adult.
Nice.
Isn't
and it's
it?
full color.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody can have that.
Thank you for making that for us.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing.
And I definitely want to read from this book before we close the Alchemical Cafe.
Yes, please.
For today.
Yes.
For now.
I love that this is your 13th episode of these powerfully creative women and who have made form books, products, projects, concepts, brought things into being. And that's what I mean by powerful creative. Power creatives is that we are beings who have chosen to bring form into being. And that is something that gets freed up when your relationship with your internal guidance system, your inner wisdom, is activated, is that you begin to be freed to create that which is yours to create. So we are creating a world of wildly inspired, awake beings who are invited to feel however they feel and are encouraged to continue to explore what is it that really wants to be revealed at this time in your life and in your journey. And what a fertile time to dive into creativity at a life-saving level, really.
Yes, yes. I feel I've waited all my life for this time.
Me too. I feel that way too. Yeah. I just got chills. Yeah.
And I love what Dr. Estes says, that wonderful essay she wrote, "We were made for these times."
Yeah. That's
Isn't it so powerful?
Yeah, we really are. And what a difference in perspective than being a victim of it, instead choosing to be at cause for being alive at this point on the journey. And I feel the same way. I felt like just a couple months ago, I was like, wow, I've been in training my whole life. I am strong. Like, everything I've been through has prepared me to be who I'm being now. And all the times I thought I was going to die from whatever it was I went through, there was lots of grace and ease, and there was also a lot of carrying rocks uphillness.
Yes.
But I'm like, wow, I am fit at the level of my capacity to navigate the future I'm creating and to call others to the festival with me.
Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you for saying that. Yeah, and so in keeping with that, you heard about the magical, show and tell and the wake up fairy, and that was very much a part of my childhood. But also there was significant abuse, and there was incest, and as a little girl, and my brother, who had been my best friend, became my abuser. And wow, I mean, talk about being forged. I mean, I went through the fires of hell, and heaven. And, I came out and I alchemized that into my imagination and into books that I wrote. I wrote my first book at age 10. And then I fell into silence until my mid-30s, and then there was depression, and there was poverty, and there was mental illness. There were so many things that I navigated. And I think sometimes, we forget, or we don't know that others have been on these very deep and impactful journeys that we didn't know about or we haven't heard. And when someone's, wearing bright clothes and they have festive pens and they've got Shiloh Sophia here, it's easy to project and go, it must be easy for her. Right. And to this day, I hope I never stop learning. I hope I never stop growing. And I hope I never stop being challenged by everything, too, because we are forged. I mean, again, when John got sick and died, I thought, how can I even live through this? Like, how could my love of my life, who I'd just gotten engaged to, just suddenly be dying? And it's like, I am more filled with love now than ever. That loss did not diminish me. That loss filled me. Isn't that great?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That full body chills on that.
I wrote this piece that said, because I wanted people to really know this, because people come up to me all the time and say, I don't know what I would do if my husband ever died. And it's all I can do to not say, well, get ready. One of you is dying. Like, we're all dying. And, but there they are, and I know what they mean. I never thought of it either. But so I wrote a piece about how terrible it was. I said it's the most horrifying, despair-filled thing. It's every bit as terrible as you might imagine. And it's not that bad. And then I go on to explain how it's not that bad. Because I thought it would just be this unrelenting slab of pain crushing me constantly. And it's not. It's much more interesting than that. There's so much opportunity for growth and love and spaciousness and inspiration and wow, you know? Yeah. Who knew?
Amazing.
Yeah. So good. So inspiration, wildly inspired. That is what I wish for you. And I'm going to close by reading this short piece from Make Your Creative Dreams Real that's dedicated to us all. Isn't that adorable?
That is.
It's a drawing of a woman in it's kind of an egg. It's kind of an egg of blankets, and she's got very, like, I don't even know, like garden of hair. Okay, so it's called A Gift for You, and it goes like this. I send you the awareness that you are inspiring. You are inspiring to us, Shiloh and I. That's not in here, but I just added that. You are inspiring to me in the following ways. So listen closely because it's not normal. For your tiny and large kindnesses, for your glad heart and your confused tears, for your stumbling and yearning, for your endearing soul and rare insights, for your impossible moods and hopeless moments, for your rage and despair and explorations in shadows and darkness, for your resistance and conflict and refusal to feel good or do good things, for your selflessness and especially for your selfishness, for your pathetic, vulnerable times and for all your splendidly human moments, for your incandescent spirit and ingenious escapes, for your will and suffering, for everything that you've tried to hide, for your failings and attempts and for all that you've lost and found, for your regrets and loneliness and for every fear that has ever stalked you, for your neurotic bumbling, for radiant knowledge and countless expressions of love. You are inspiring to me because you are exquisitely you.
Gosh, it's all in there. Thank you for that. That's like an anointing of blessing. It's to all be included and made relevant. And we can move into that space. It's like this whole potential for how we could be in relationship with what is opens. And those aren't just things that happen. We cultivate them. We curate the potential for and being inspiring ourselves.
We curate with curiosity.
Yes, curate with curiosity. You heard it here on Power Creatives TV. Thank you, Susan, for being with us. And thank you all so much. Season 1 was a fierce women founders, and it's been really enlightening and just such a blessing to have all of you from around the world join us. Thank you for your letters and your emails and your gifts. People sent teacups and coffees, and people sent presents, and people just really made this wonderful experience. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in.